Every good story has a warning. Kenya's Virtual Asset Service Providers Act is a bold, forward-looking step. But even good laws can go bad if they are misapplied, misunderstood, or mishandled. Regulation can either build an ecosystem or bury it. And the difference often comes down to one word: implementation. Let's talk about the potential dangers that could emerge from this act, not because it is bad, but because the road to progress is paved with unintended consequences. The first danger is overregulation. We've seen it in other countries. The government starts with good intentions: protect investors, eliminate scams, bring transparency, but ends up creating so much red tape that innovation cannot breathe. Imagine a small Kenyan startup with two developers and the dream of building a blockchain lending app. They now need licenses, compliance officers, cybersecurity audits, and capital reserves before writing their first line of code. That is not regulation. That is suffocation. If the licensing process becomes too complex or too expensive, local talent will leave. The innovators who might have built Africa's most significant DeFi projects will move to Dubai, Mauritius, or even remote friendly jurisdictions like Estonia. Kenya will lose its builders before it even finishes building the system. The second danger is regulatory capture. That's when the laws designed to protect the public end up protecting insiders instead. If licensing is controlled by a small circle of well-connected players, the ecosystem turns into a private club, hard to enter, easy to manipulate. The same thing happened in parts of the financial sector across Africa, where competition was quietly replaced by control. Crypto's strength lies in open access. Anyone can build, anyone can trade, anyone can innovate. If that openness gets replaced by gatekeeping, Kenya's crypto future could end up looking a lot like its old banking past: closed, rigid, and slow. The third risk lies in ambiguity between regulators. We've mentioned this before, but it's worth emphasizing because it's where many countries stumble. The Act gives authority to both the CMA and CBK, but doesn't perfectly define where one's power ends and the other one begins. If those institutions start pulling in opposite directions, businesses will get caught in the middle. We saw this in the United States. The SEC says one thing, CFTC says another, and startups end up spending more on lawyers than on engineers. Kenyans cannot afford that confusion. The only way forward is collaboration. Regulators speaking with one voice, not two competing ones. The fourth danger: data privacy erosion. The Act gives regulators power to collect transaction data for anti-money laundering and counterterrorism monitoring. That's understandable. But here's the issue: what safeguards exist for that data? Crypto transactions combined with personal identification, they form a digital fingerprint that reveals everything about a person's financial behavior. Who ensures that data won't be sold, leaked, or abused? Without strict linkage to Kenya's Data Protection Act, we could see a future where surveillance outweighs security. Regulation should make users feel safer, not watched. Fifth, there is danger of slow implementation. Kenya has passed many strong laws that later stalled in execution. If this act becomes another paper victory, passed with headlines, but no practical enforcement, the market will fall into limbo. Exchanges won't know whether to apply or wait. Investors will hesitate. Users will be unsure which platforms are legit. That uncertainty could be worse than having no law at all. Because once you announce that a framework exists, every day without implementation breeds confusion. The next danger is stifling the spirit of decentralization. Crypto's core philosophy is freedom, financial sovereignty, peer-to-peer interaction, global participation. Overly centralized oversight risks clashing with that ethos. If every wallet, exchange, or token project requires government approval, we drift away from the very reason blockchain was invented: to remove unnecessary intermediaries. The challenge is to regulate the behavior, not the innovation. Governments should guard against fraud, not dictate how smart contracts are written. There's a more subtle danger: talent drain through fear. Regulation is supposed to guide, not intimidate. But if the first few enforcement actions feel aggressive or unfair, developers and investors will lose confidence. Imagine the first case where a startup gets fined for a compliance error it did not even understand. That story will spread faster than any success story. It will send a signal that crypto is not welcome here. And by the time regulators realize, the best minds will already be building somewhere else. Another concern is unequal access. If compliance costs rise too high, only large international exchanges will be able to afford to play. Local entrepreneurs will be priced out. That means the same foreign platforms who are trying to regulate could end up dominating the Kenya market again, but this time with official licenses. The act should be a bridge for local innovation, not just a moat protecting global giants. Kenya must find a way to offer tiered licensing where smaller innovators get a path to scale gradually without breaking the bank. The act also risks leaving too much to discretion. Several sections give regulators power to determine conditions or amend schedules by notice. That flexibility can be good, but without clear checks, it can also be abused. Markets thrive on predictability. Entrepreneurs need to know that rules will not change overnight. Kenya should adopt a consultative model where any regulatory amendment involves industry feedback before enforcement. That's how Singapore and the UAE remain relevant, by keeping the door open to conversation. Let's also talk about public perception. Crypto's relationship with the public has always been fragile. For every blockchain success story, there's a headline about a scam. The VASP Act is an opportunity to reset that narrative, but only if it is communicated well. If the rollout feels rushed or punitive, the public will assume it's just another tax grab or control mechanism. Kenya must pair regulation with education and explain not just what is changing but why. Transparency builds legitimacy, silence breeds resistance. Finally, there is the most significant danger of all: missing the long game. Crypto moves fast, far faster than any law. What looks cutting edge today could be outdated in 2 years. If the act is not flexible, it could end up freezing Kenya in 2025's version of blockchain while the rest of the world moves into new frontiers. DeFi 3.0, tokenized AI models, decentralized identities, Web3 gaming economies. The law must evolve like code, modular, adaptable, always open to patches and upgrades. If it doesn't, Kenya will find itself enforcing rules for a world that no longer exists. But let's end on a hopeful note. The dangers are real, but they are not inevitable. Kenya has something many countries don't: a tech-savvy youth, a vibrant fintech ecosystem, and a proven record of leapfrogging old systems. Remember MPESA? Everyone said mobile money would not work until Kenya made it work so well that the rest of the world copies it. The same spirit can guide this next leap. The Virtual Asset Service Providers Act can either be a cage or a launchpad. It depends on how Kenya chooses to use it. If regulators listen, if startups engage, if both sides collaborate instead of competing, this law could make Kenya the model for African crypto integration, building trust without killing innovation. So yes, there are risks, but there's also a possibility. And that's what crypto has always been about: possibility. The story of Kenya's VASP Act is not over. It's just beginning. And for those watching closely, this could be the start of something historic. The moment when Africa did not just follow the world's digital future, but started defining it.